I've come to talk to you today a little bit about a non-technical topic, but it's very relevant because it's about how do you organize teams and how do you make decisions to get faster in hardware product development. So hopefully this presentation will inform and you'll be able to take away one or two snippets that maybe you can actually put into practice in your organization. So I'm going to talk about a framework to help us do that, and the framework I'm going to talk about is rapid learning cycles. So what we're going to cover today is I'll start with just a brief introduction of the framework, a little bit of history about why I got interested in this. I'll obviously introduce myself a little bit more, and then we'll kind of look at one of those challenges, like what is it that makes hardware product development difficult and time consuming. So if you like, we'll look at that problem definition. And then what we'll do is we'll take a look at, okay, so what is the rapid learning cycle framework and how can that help me do these difficult product developments? In terms of that framework, I haven't got time to cover it all, so I'm going to focus on two aspects of that. One will be key decisions, which we're going to find out is super critical when we're doing hardware product development. And the other will be extensible knowledge. So one of the benefits about focusing on learning is that you create knowledge. And if you create and capture your knowledge, you then get faster the next time you do it, or your global team can access it more quickly. So a little bit about the journey. So around about 2009, I was a leader in a global corporate product development organization. And I was managing a portfolio of projects and global teams. And I got the challenge, can we speed up our product development? I'm sure everybody's heard this question. And about that time, Catherine Radika was writing about lean product development, and the Toyota product development method had just been launched, so as a book. So it was really about how do we make product development lean and more agile for hardware. So I got interested in that and I started practicing some of the techniques in this global corporate. And then around about 2012, I moved into a corporate lighting company, not to mention names, but they happen to be here. At that time, they were moving from fluorescent to LED lighting. So we had to change a full product range for a $500 million company from one technology to another. So very stressful, probably the fastest product developments I've ever done in my lifetime. But interestingly, I used those techniques. I used the lean product development. So what I'm talking to you about today are things that I've actually done in businesses with real teams that I've seen work. In about 2015, Catherine refined her thinking and launched this book, The Shortest Distance Between You and Your New Product Development. And that then brought in the aspect of rapid learning cycles, which then extends the knowledge and starts to bring in a bit more to the framework than just making it lean, just creating a good connection and teamwork. Catherine's gone on to write a few other books, and I launched my own business in 2017, and I've been working with Catherine since then. And I was proud to proofread the last book, which was 2022, which is this one, When Agile Gets Physical. I've got a few signed copies of that. So if I stir your interest, come and find me afterwards, and I can let you have a signed copy of the book. So I've started rambling on to you, and you don't know who I am. So let me tell you who I am. So I'm a product development expert, and I don't say that lightly. I say it because in the definition of expert, I've spent 30 years developing products in corporate companies, small companies, innovation centers, quite a lot of different places. I've been fortunate enough to work with good teams. I've been fortunate enough to work with leading global brands. Some of them are on here. And I've been fortunate enough to get trained in a lot of different techniques to help you get products out the door faster. So when I say that I'm a product development expert, that's my qualifications. I'm also academically qualified for that as well. So the rapid learning cycle methodology or framework has been used in a lot of different companies. And this is the obligatory, these are some of the companies that have used this framework slide. And effectively, what I want you to take away from this are two things. One is that it can be used in lots of different industries. So you can see medical device companies here, you can see consumer companies, you can see agri-tech, you can see industrial brands. So it can be used in a lot of different industry sectors. So it's not industry sector specific. And then also the size of the companies. Some of them are large global corporates. Some of them are actually startups. Recently, they had a lot of success with startups in the US, where they actually managed to get 3 out of 4 finalists for their hydrogen competition in university startups funded. So it can be used for a lot of different things. These are some of the client successes, and effectively the headline one is faster time to market. So we're trying to get faster at getting our new products out of the door. But the reality is this. The reality is that organizations have told us that they got faster time to market by incorporating rapid learning cycles in their standard product development process. So it's not a one-size-fits-all methodology. It's actually about using it where it's applicable. And we'll look at where it's applicable in a moment or two. The other things that you see here are benefits that you can get from the tool by using it with cross-functional teams. So the people who've used the tool tell us that they got increased capacity because when they made that extensible knowledge, they got faster at doing their products. They got faster at onboarding new employees. They got faster at using it with global teamwork, global team members. So effectively, that gave them increased capacity. They could get more done with the same resources. So it has some good benefits. Interestingly, they also found that because of the extended analysis at the front and searching out the key questions, it helped them identify new markets. It helped them accelerate growth. So these are all things that can be benefits from the tool when you employ it in your organization. But before we get to the tool, let's talk a little bit about product development and some of the challenges that you can get with product development. So why does it take so long? Could I do a survey? Could I do a quick survey? For those of you who develop products, can you put your hand up if you've ever had a project that wasn't running on time? Right, so I think we all agree that product development is a little bit challenging and it's a bit risky and it doesn't always go smoothly. So I was very confident I'd get a show of hands there, by the way, just so you know. And if you look at the statistics, this quote is from 2013, saying that 40% of new products have disappointing results. Actually, if you look at the 2023 version in the Journal of Product Management, it's still the same. It hasn't changed in 3 decades. We haven't got better at new product development. I looked at this and thought to myself, is that true of me? Have I not got better in the last 30 years? That's disappointing. But actually, one key distinction is the best companies do get better. They use the best tools. They employ the best resources. They invest in their innovation. So there is a marked difference between the best and between the laggards, shall we say. So there's obviously many ways a new product can fail. And if you look in the article and do your research, you'll find that there's a vast array you can come up with. And this slide captures a few of them. But effectively, it's very simple. To be successful in new product development, you need the right product, you need it at the right time, and you need the right value proposition. If you have those 3 things, then you've got a good chance. But equally, if you then drill down on those 3 things, there's lots of things that can go wrong. So it's very important that you're keeping an eye on these things throughout the product development process. So if we look at the problem a slightly different way and take a graphical view of that, then this slide is just trying to convey what typically happens in a product development. So effectively what happens is we start at the bottom with from concept to product release. So we're going to take a product all the way through the journey. And what happens is in businesses, very often the initial inertia is to get started as quickly as possible, to start making decisions, to get things done. And as you do that, you start committing to costs. So for example, you choose a chipset, or you choose a particular set of hardware, or you choose a particular supplier, and you start committing to those things early in the project because you want to show results to your management team. You want to get stuff done because they're asking you, when will I get this product, guys? That's typically what happens in organizations. So what happens if you do that is you start committing to costs earlier than maybe you have to. And as you commit to costs, what happens is your design freedom comes down. Because effectively, you then have to go back to your manager and say, oh, actually, that chipset I chose, I found a better one, so I'd like to change that, please. And he says, oh, but we've laid the board out now, so like I'm not doing that because it'll cost me more money. So what's the benefit? So then all of a sudden, your design freedom is becoming less. The challenge that Catherine identified is that actually you're gaining the most knowledge when you've done your prototypes and when you've been talking to customers, and as you go through the project, it's only about midway through that you start to really rise on the knowledge curve and really understand all of the challenges that you have and really understand the differences between different chipsets because you've now got them on a board and you're actually playing with them and you've written the software and you've started to do the hard yards to figure out what actually works and what doesn't. So the key problem is that we're gaining the knowledge after we've made the decision. And that's something that Catherine identified and something that kind of resonated with me because I've seen it so many times in products. So I'd like to propose to you that the problem definition is that we go from concept to launch, and we make a lot of our decisions in the early phases, in the concept and design phase. And we do that so that we can progress the project, and we do it with sometimes not enough knowledge of the decision making that we're taking. So what we're doing is we're making decisions based on incomplete knowledge, and then when we get to testing and validation, we find out, oh, actually, that doesn't perform quite like I thought it did. I need to go back and change that. And these are the sources of effectively the longer slow loopbacks that you didn't want to do. It's the additional board iteration that you might have had to do. It's the change to the mechanics or the mold tool that you didn't plan that you need to now change because it didn't quite work like you thought it did because you didn't do your shock or vibration testing early on. So it's all of those things that cause you to go back in a loop and revisit the stuff that you'd already decided in the concept and early design phase. So hopefully I've illustrated a problem definition and hopefully it resonates a little bit with you guys. Now what I'd like to do is talk about how rapid learning cycles can help with that. So the major benefit of rapid learning cycles is it's focusing on learning as much as possible as you can from the very first time you enter the project. And it does that by trying to pull the knowledge capture forward. So what you're trying to do is focus on how can I capture as much knowledge to make informed decisions? But also what you're trying to do is you're trying not to commit to things. So I don't want to choose my chip until I've actually got 2 dev kits and had to play with them both and figured out that the vendor's telling me a porky when he tells me this one's got better power consumption than this one. Or so I really want to understand the decision making I'm doing, not just the data sheet that I get or the interesting things that marketing people tell me that seem to never prove to be true to me. So going back to our graph, we're going to pull the knowledge forward. We're going to try and increase our design freedom by not making a decision. So I might make 2 boards for my prototype with 2 different chipsets so I can evaluate the pair and try and figure out. So concurrent engineering to try and make sure that I extend my decision making as long as I can so that actually when I get there, I can make a very well-informed decision and I don't have to go back and revisit it, delaying the project. So you might argue if I build 2 things, that costs more. I agree. But going back in a long loop costs you way more. So when we've done all of that, what we're doing is we're trying to push the cost of change further out. So the other benefit that you get from making decisions later is, and here's another put your hands up question, put your hands up if you've ever had a changing requirements from product management or the customer or halfway through the project. That's right. So the reason that we're trying to make decisions later is because we know somebody's going to change their mind, and actually we're going to learn a bit more about the market. And they don't do it on purpose. Maybe a competitor's brought out a new product that's just suddenly changed the marketplace. So we find out new things as we're going through that journey. And we need to be able to adapt and have flexibility to tackle that. So to recap, we're going to pull learning forward and try and remove any obstacles to our product development as fast as we can. And we're going to push decisions later so that we can preserve flexibility. The other benefit that I talked about with rapid learnings was that you create extensible knowledge. So one of the things about this tool is we're going to use it to create very simple one-page summaries of what we learned, how that can be reused, and provide that for the project so it can be reused across the business. And by doing that, we can accelerate future teams' development, or we can also guard ourselves against the risk of people leaving the business because we're capturing the knowledge as we go along. So it's real-time knowledge capture, and it means that we're focusing on the knowledge rather than focusing on the details of should we have, for example, this Gantt chart with this particular activity and the supplier is due to give me this part by then. All of those things need to happen, but they're execution. They're not the critical things. The critical things is learning and becoming more capable as a business. So I said rapid learning cycles isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. So this is trying to illustrate where to use it. So it's very simple. You can combine it with your traditional tools. So you probably use Gantt charts and traditional project management. You probably use Agile in software teams. You probably have other informal tools that you use. But this actually tries to figure out where you might want to use those things. And in fact, rapid learning cycles framework is actually honed to tackle those problems where there's a very high cost of change, which is typically true of hardware development, and where there's a very high uncertainty. So if you've got a new chipset, a new technology, a new wireless standard, if you've got a new supplier that you're bringing into the business, all of those things should be ringing alarm bells. So anywhere where you say new on your project, that might be a place where you want to think about rapid learning cycles. So if I move on to a couple of aspects of the framework that are interesting, we've got key decisions. So the key decisions are really the root problem that we're trying to solve. Because when we make a decision wrong and we have to go back, that is the cause of a delay in our project and usually has a big impact. It's usually the one that you don't want to go and tell your boss about. So what is a key decision? Every decision you make on a project is not a key decision. So, you might know how to do it because you've done it before, in which case it's a known solution, it's a proven solution, so just reuse it. It's a reference design, it's a hardware snippet you can transfer from one project to another. You've proven it before, it's been validated, you're quite confident in it. Just use it. There's no need to worry about it. Key decisions are really for those that are unknown solutions and have a high impact. They're for things that are new, unique, or difficult. NUDs, I think Catherine refers to them as NUDs. It's new, unique, or difficult, and that's where we're kind of focusing for key decisions. But the key thing is, early in the project, sit down and try and figure out what are the things I know and what are the things that are risky and are new. So illustrating that this way, just to remind you, we're taking decisions very early in the project, and we're doing that with little knowledge. So our risk area is very much at the front of the project, and it's that causes the delays at the end of the project, although we don't realize it till we get to the end of the project. So that's what we're trying to solve. It's those key decisions that are taken with the little knowledge that we do early, probably relatively confidently at the time because we think we know what we're talking about, Because one of the interesting things about human nature is we're usually overconfident. So actually, we do that because it's a basic human nature, but actually it's not so good in this case. We don't want to be overconfident. In order to make a key decision, how do we make it stick? How do we make a decision early in the project that's going to stick? And actually, again, it's relatively simple when you think about it. We need the right people at the right time with the best available knowledge. And if we've got that, we're probably going to be making a fairly good decision. So taking those three things, if we're using the right people, then that's probably going to involve the project team, because they're going to have good domain knowledge about the particular project. It'll involve the project sponsor, which might be your client, your customer, might be your boards. It could be various people on the project sponsor. Generally, it might involve review boards, so management teams, leaders of their domain, people who have an interest because they're going to be taking this in the business. And often it'll involve experts. Experts is an interesting one because often we don't go out and find an expert for a particular topic. We try and do it internally. And my snippet of advice is go out and talk to people. In this room, there's lots of experts on different things. So go and talk to them and utilize the experts. Ask them to come and join you for the reviews. Get their input because it's actually a very good way to minimize your risks. The right time depends on a thing called the last responsible moment. So what is the last responsible moment? The last responsible moment is the point in your project where actually you need to make a decision, otherwise you're going to have significant increased costs in the project, or you're going to have a significant impact on the project that's going to effectively derail your project. That's the last responsible moment. The other thing that key decisions have, and it's the root of rapid learning, is they have knowledge gaps. So what's quite interesting about knowledge gaps is when you're working on a complex problem that's new and unique and difficult, it's not a straightforward path. You think you can plan out a path to get to the solution. So you think, oh, I'll do this piece of research, I'll get this test kit, I'll do some experimentation, and then I'll make a decision. And then you do the experiment and you find out, actually, that didn't quite go like I thought it was going to go, so I need to rethink that. So what happens is the path to your goal actually looks like that. You take a bit of a kind of winding path to figure out where you want to be. So the benefit of rapid learnings is that you're focused on doing that on a cadence. You're going to do it fast, and you're going to keep learning until you get to that goal or as near as possible to that goal. So when we use rapid learning cycles in a project, we bring the team together and we create what we call knowledge gaps, things we need to understand in order to make a good decision. And we do that and we time box it, and the team members take ownership of these knowledge gaps, and they go away and they start working on learning. And the outcome of that learning is a knowledge gap report. And we bring that back to an integration event. And in the integration event, we review everybody's knowledge gap regarding that decision. So it might have different aspects. It might have a manufacturing implication. It might have a design hardware implication. It might have some software implications. So we're bringing all of those things back to the project to understand how are we going to make this decision and what are the recommendations. And then interestingly, the key decision is taken and is documented in a key decision report. So not only have we got all the things we learned about the problem in simple one-page summaries, we've also got what decision was taken in a one-page summary. Because often you make a decision, you forgot you're taking that decision, and 3 months down the line, someone says, "Oh, I think Bob told me that. We made that decision some time ago." And so actually, it's well recorded, well documented, and you've got traceability around your process. It doesn't mean every decision is taken with no risk. We still have risk in product development. I can't eliminate risk from product development for you. I'd love to eliminate it for myself, but I can't do that. So it just means that we're trying to minimize that risk, and we're cognizant of it as early as possible in the process. So I have some slides that talk about the extensible knowledge and talk about the A3, but what I think I'd like to do is kind of get a bit of discussion going and get some feedback from you guys, if that's okay. So if you want to come and see me afterwards, I'm quite happy to share the full presentation with you. quite happy to let you have a copy of the book if you think it might be useful for you in your organization. But this is really the process and how it works in reality. And these are the one-page reports that actually we use to capture the information. So this is an example of a knowledge gap. And it really goes through question to answer, the purpose, what we've done, what we learned, next steps. So what I'm going to do is just remind you again of who I am. So I'm Derek, and I've got a business called Invent, Design, Build, and we're a rapid learning cycle associate. I think one of a few in the UK. And if you want to get a CPD credit, then you can scan the chart there. And I would like to open the floor to questions, if that's okay.
Hands up if anyone has a question. I will come over with the microphone. I saw lots of people nodding, etc. during that, so I'm coming over with the microphone.
Hi, my name is Alex. On one of the slides you mentioned...
1 second, I can't hear him.
Sorry. Hello, my name is Alex. I was just wondering, you mentioned in one of your slides that we need to postpone the decision moment and to get some other thing as early as possible. I think I somehow missed it. Could you please highlight it again? What it was?
Does that work? Yeah. Okay. So just stop me when you say.
Yeah, this one. No, the next. Sorry. So could you please highlight again what's the core idea of changing the perspective?
So the core idea here is that what we do is early in the phase of the projects, we focus on learning. So instead of asking the question, when will your product be ready, as a manager, we focus on, for example, okay, what have we learned in order to take the key decisions to minimize the risks and maximize our chance of success? And by doing that, we have time-based sprints, if you like, if you take an agile point of view, time-based sprints on the hardware side to learn. So the objective of the sprint is to learn about the knowledge gaps so that we can make a very good decision so that we don't have to go back and revisit it like halfway through when we then start testing.
Yeah, kind of makes sense. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hold on, over here.
Hello, my name is George. I have a question related to company size. So I'm working with a startup, and it seems like a natural time to use this new process at the beginning rather than later. I'm also curious if you could comment on hardware and software integration and how the steps differ between a hardware path and a software path of getting teams to work together in that way.
Okay, no problem. 2 questions. So first of all, with startups, I've actually used this technique with a startup. And I haven't talked about it, but some of the technique is about what's the core hypothesis of your business proposition. And I said I didn't have time to cover all of the framework, but the core hypothesis is a very good one for startups because it's really testing what are your assumptions about the marketplace and your product, and can we evaluate those and learn as much as we can about those assumptions before we start any real development. And in my experience, and I work with a lot of startups, that's something that is quite challenging with startups. They're quite fixed in their view of the world. So it's really good for that, but it's also quite difficult sometimes to... Just move this. 1 second.
I was just going to say that might be a good moment because we have hit the end of our session. If you want to maybe take this Q&A